Great. Hello, everybody. It's May 27th at 4:30. Welcome to the Educator Excellence Committee. We are continuing our conversation around how we support first year teachers and new teachers coming into the city as our priority for this year. We also have a issue that was raised to us this last public meeting on Wednesday that we would like to discuss as well. And I'll pass to our Deputy Director, Jen, to kick us off on where we left things with the first year teachers last meeting, and then actually would want an open discussion about what we do with or I have one idea I'd love folks to consider for how we follow up on what we heard from the public meeting. But let's start with what we said was our strategic priority first.
Sure. Thank you, Representative Chang. I actually, in thinking about this meeting, I remembered what you had sent ahead of the May working session a few weeks ago. I thought it was
Mhm.
actually an excellent summary of potential recommendations based on what you all heard last month from that small group of teachers and what they were sharing about their experiences since they were at varying stages of their careers as teachers, what they all experienced.
Mhm.
First was a recommendation about strengthening what's already working. So in terms of more informal supports. So there were some talks about those informal supports and touch points, that are not necessarily scheduled in. So time to check in. There were even mentions of things like stipends or time recognition, things like that. Um, Formal supports, though, like structures, scheduling, just making sure that regular time for peer-to-peer collaboration is built in to mentoring was another potential recommendation. Third would be revisiting in DC why past programs have been phased out and what are potential ways we could bring those back as a city. And then finally, co-designing professional development that reflects real first year challenges. So a lot of those teachers especially shared about, and we've heard this in public meeting testimony as well, especially the mental health component of it. Um, Needing support with time management strategies for
Mhm.
ensuring their time is managed effectively and efficiently, rather than having more and more added to their plate, especially in their first year or so of teaching. So those are kind of I think you all kind of shared those thoughts after that meeting last month with the teachers. And
Yep.
that's kind of where
Great.
yeah, a summary of what was.
Thanks. I have one. There was um, one follow-up that we had discussed around seeing if the staff had capacity to check in on some of those past programs. Were we able to learn anything?
We have not. I know there is a lot going on at DCPS and with DCPS. We might have more
Mhm.
luck after graduation season. So
Okay.
I'll do my best. I know with Bernice as well, our executive director, and any communications with the central office and their staff to check in
Well,
about.
thankfully, we have our Vice President Williams in
Exactly.
this committee. So, um, Rep. Williams, would you be open to flagging that for your next meeting with them too?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Thank you. Because I do think that'll help inform where we are. Um, so,
I know as well, Representative Chang, that the WTU leadership was interested in partnering with us on this, and I know the WTU is currently like going through leadership elections, but I think once those are over, once the results are clear, it'd definitely be a good action step to involve them in developing uh, the recommendations that we see fit and in just kind of leveraging their ability to ask questions as well.
100% agreed. I think, you know, my proposal would be that we have a little bit more structure before we bring other players in of just where do we want to, what's the direction we want to take this and what success looks like by the end of this committee's work, right? Given what is the state board's role in this and what is the committee's role in this is I think where we need to clarify before we bring other players in. So um the if you and the staff can work on getting some more information from DCPS on some of these past programs that were phased out and why they were phased out, I think that'll help inform what we would propose on the formal side, right? Uh, because clearly those formal structures were in place once upon a time and have been disbanded, right? And then in terms of thinking about I mean, for me personally, I think thinking about how the professional development gets moved around, you all know that's been something that I've been thinking about a lot of for literacy. And so how to support the development of professional development specifically for first year instructors is a really, I think, actionable next step that I would want to learn more about too. And um, right, like think through one on the DCPS side, what is being done and how are they thinking about it? But then two, what's that look like on the charter side too? So I think my proposals for both of our themes today is actually because I found the panel really helpful. And I know this pushes our original timeline in a different direction, but my proposal would be that I want your feedback on is the for the next meetings, we have someone from we invite someone from DCPS and someone from the Charter Alliance to come talk to us about what they've been doing and thinking about first year teachers in terms of professional development and what kind of support they're giving them in terms of training. Because there is other support beyond training, but that one feels easiest to at least understand and take a stab at while we learn more about some of these informal formal structures that are in place beyond training, and want your feedback on that.
Representative Chang, do you have your own vision, your own answers to the questions you posed about like what is the role of the state board and what is the role of this committee? And I'm also wondering if you share, so Ben and I were both on this committee last year, and we did kind of come to a conclusion and why we had the resolution about, calling for some of those formal structures to be reinstated.
Mhm.
But I don't want to presume that you share that um, as a goal, or are you trying to hold that out as maybe a long-term goal, but you're also interested in like what are the interim, maybe more immediately
It's
actionable
fair.
things?
It's
Is
fair.
that
Yeah, that's fair.
just so I
That's fair. And
understand?
I think, yep. Um, Jen, just so it's at the top of all of our inboxes, could we get your help to share that resolution again with the committee members so it's so we can review it before next time again? The the so I think we've got a couple different paths we can take in the immediacy in terms of what I think of our role as, especially right now with the budget, um, making sure that the things that are the most important, that we find the most important for education and for our students in DC are um, not cut, right? And so what I'm trying to understand too is what formal structures are in place that are on the chopping block, but I don't know if this is the year that we advocate for something new. Do you agree? I mean, maybe it is, right? And maybe actually what we're asking for is, you know, cut something else more so that we can actually put this in place. Right. But I don't see, I don't know what is going to be added on to anything in the budget this year as
Sure.
a new program.
Yeah, and I think you're like every indication I've gotten from the folks who are involved is that adding things is not really a promising avenue right now. But philosophically, I think it's still important to kind of say what the things are that we want, even if we know we can't get them. So I guess what I'm suggesting and asking if you're okay with is like this dual track of we continue to hold out like we think that as a city we should be moving towards these structures and maybe continuing to fill out what those would look like while we're also looking at the what are the things that we can do now with minimal budget impact. And I don't want to either split our focus or take on more than we can, but I do think both of those things are important. And so I guess I just kind of want to know where you how you feel about that.
Okay, so then I philosophically agree, and philosophically, where I always, this want to better understand is how would it be implemented and by whom, right? Because one of the things we did here was that there was very varied feedback on the formal structures that were in place, existing formal structures that were in place for first year teachers, right? So I don't I don't love the idea of advocating for it as a checkbox. And the question of how you do it well, I think super matters, right? Because we have, I think we have too many programs that are from the policymakers saying, do this thing, but then aren't actually executed well. And then it's actually more of a burden for everybody than helpful, right? And so if we go down that route, I think my ask would be, and I'm very open to it, what else can we do to help sort out? Maybe learning from other states. I mean, that's always an easy place to start. How do you actually execute these programs well, right? And these formal structures well? What is the difference between a good one and a bad one? And then therefore, what is the difference between a good and a bad policy, and how we advocate, what we advocate for specifically when we are advocating for more formal support? Because I agree, they need more support, but I also think more is not the answer. It's better, right? Uh, it's better first year support that actually matters. Um, See, now I'm thinking about all the panels we can have instead of us talking with each other. I
You
mean,
can also invite people to this committee
yeah,
meeting. So it doesn't have to be, I know you all know this,
right,
it doesn't have to be at a public meeting as well.
yeah. Well, is that something that you would be willing to take on, Rep. Henderson, as thinking through what that new resolution this year looks like, but then also helping me answer some of the what and how questions?
Yeah, I am. I just
Okay,
I want us not to lose that thread
I agree.
because
Yep.
we put that work in. But I'm happy to continue working on that. And if I can throw in, since we last met, there was a WTU event about literacy, and since you weren't there, I did bring up the PD
Thank you.
topic, and they're definitely interested to Rep. Williams' point. They're interested in giving. They have plenty of feedback on PD, as I'm sure you would expect. And so I do think that's a ripe area for investigation. And I would also want to know from DCPS and charter sector how they do PD for first years or early career versus like what they're offering to everybody, and um,
Great.
how that plays out in terms of their time, and agree that what we want is better, not necessarily more.
Great.
And I think that can be the focus too of what we've already started with bringing teachers together at our last meeting. If we were to go to bringing experts into this committee or in a broader panel to the whole board, and or how we involve the W2. I think it's important to bring the W2 in earlier rather than later, because I think that there's a lot that we can learn from as to what's working and what are the gaps. But I think there are other outside experts that I think could then help fill the gaps with answering the question, what does effective support look like? Not just what does more support look like.
So you're saying last panel wasn't enough and we should spend more time on the diagnosis?
Um, I think I think that I'm kind of seeing this as walking and chewing gum at the same time. I think we have a good enough uh understanding of what's not happening. I mean, but I think the biggest things that I think could be helpful are looking at examples from other states that have been proven to be effective, and the attributes of those types of programs that we could implement and possibly scale in DC.
Okay. And I see that's what I mean of before we bring in other players, let's do our homework. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Right? Because I think um it's the conversations that I find over the years that have been most impactful and actually effective are the ones that are more structured than broadly, here's the broad theme. What do you
mhm.
think? You know? And so I love that actually, right? And if we can do a panel or it's Jen, and I think this is ties back to your decision in leadership, VP Williams. If we could get some staff time to look into what other states have done for first year students that's been proven to be effective, if that's a policy memo for us, great. If that's a panel and we find that that's easier, great. But I think to me that's a great place to start, because then when we bring folks like the WTU in, it can be structured around what do you think about these things and how that would be adapted to DC, right?
Yeah,
And or what does that spark you to think about for us instead, right? Because I wouldn't find the broad. We've had a lot of the broad. What is the diagnosis conversations, in my opinion, right? And so I wouldn't want to start just there.
I agree.
Okay. So Jen, what do you think? Can we do a policy memo for us for next meeting?
I think that there are, yes, I also think that in the past month, some of the examples that I've just kind of been perusing have been ones that we did cite in the resolution, and then we had Wesley from the Learning Policy Institute who did he dove in and did a lot of research on this topic as well. So I will make sure that you all have that information. Um,
I would love
what is
something.
it?
I think what Ben is saying is more
Yeah,
tactical,
yeah, that makes
and
sense.
what I'm asking is more tactical, right? It's
Mhm.
not right. It's not just the PD should be specific to first years. It's what did they do specifically? How much money did they spend on it? How did they measure the results? And what did those results tell us? And what lessons were learned from that implementation? Was it legislated or was it a program? Right?
Some
Like
of
all of
that,
those, that
yeah.
level of details is actually, I think, what we're looking for here so that we can run that by our stakeholders.
Some of that I can find easily and readily available. Some of that would have to require having conversations with the folks who led those efforts. So I don't know if I can 100% to commit to all that, especially being understaffed in the moment, but I will do my best. And we do have a new policy fellow who can support me with this.
Great. So let's see how far we can get with policy fellow. And then if there are key players that the policy fellow gets really excited about and we can reach out and see if they're willing to talk to us in this committee, that would be my proposal.
That works.
Okay, so then we're moving down both threads, right? So Rep. Henderson is leading the continuation of what the committee did last year, and we're going to lean into the professional development side here and then bring other stakeholders in to get feedback on what we've learned and see how we could actually implement that and customize that to DC. I like both of those. If Jen, I could get your help to make sure that we're tracking both of those as well, like project management wise tracking, right? Of how far are we getting each week, as we get between meetings. The fire that we need to talk about in the last 10 minutes today is the green card issue that was brought up at the public meeting on Wednesday, and what we want to do to respond to that. Or or I guess it's not green card, the visa question that was brought up. So I I I think we should invite somebody from DCPS to come talk to us about what they're thinking about this, and why. I just give them the benefit of the doubt. For we've heard one perspective. I would love to hear what the other one is, so we can wrap our heads around what did they consider, if anything, what was the trade-off, why are they thinking about it this way. And so I would love if we could write them as a committee and they give it to us in writing and we can read it, or if we invite one of their reps to come on to our next committee meeting too, and we can ask them some questions.
I remember being in a leadership meeting where we had gotten some semblance of an answer from the chancellor and Abe Clayman about that. And it was the answer was either one of two reasons. It was either a funding issue, or it was a some logistical piece with regards to the federal government.
Yeah.
But I do believe that it was the funding issue.
So if that is the case, if that is actually the case, we have two questions. One, do we believe that? And two, would we say funding this is more important than funding anything else in the city right now?
and
Right.
I,
And I'm not saying I have right enough. I don't think I know enough information. I know that if this were in a petri dish, I would say absolutely. Why are we doing this? So
So I have
yeah.
I have a response from Abe Clayman from March. I asked about this question because somebody brought it up to me, and I'm happy to share that with you all. And off the top of my head, I do believe it was that it was related to funding. It was not something that was they said was intended to be a permanent program, but they had some money to do it at the time. Um, I personally have already kind of come to the position that it is something that I'll advocate for in the budget cycle, because I think it is a relatively light ask. I think what the WTU and others, I believe DC Action and Empower Ed, are also kind of advocating around an ask for about 200 to 300,000. And I do think it is worth that. Certainly, that's my opinion. I do understand that that has to come from somewhere, but I think that that's where I've landed.
yeah, I'm in a similar place, Representative Henderson. And I do. I think we just need a particular champion on the council to try and restore the funding.
Yeah. Well, you know that is a route that I find always to get things done. And so what I'm hearing you propose is that we move forward straight to a resolution and advocacy. And I think what I'm proposing is spending a bit of this next time between now and our next meeting to poke and prod at DCPS a bit to see if they are willing to do something about this before we ask for some kind of, I mean, basically what that would mean, Ben, is that we ask for a BSA in the budget to fund this from council, right? And I just, I, you know, I've resorted to that in the past for things that I am advocating for. I would, in each of those cases, I have tried, and I would like to in this case, say that that is the route we will take if you guys don't do something about this first, right? And see what the response is.
Um, I I appreciate that, and I think it's definitely worth asking. I would also just note that it's the timeline is really
Yeah,
tight
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
the I mean, we just got the budget today. I can't tell you that I've been like, I haven't gotten into the detail yet to see. I mean, I'm assuming that it hasn't been restored to this point. But the oversight hearing is June 6th. So that's like next Friday. So it's really tight to be able to get a response from them. Uh, and so
Yeah.
I'm not saying we shouldn't. But in some ways, I think like their their default response is, we decided we couldn't fund this in the budget. And so that's kind of
Yeah,
why I'm coming to the conclusion I'm coming to of just for again, I personally am just going to say I think this is important. I hope that you'll consider funding to the
yeah,
council.
yep.
But we could still reach
And
out.
um, so what would your proposed timeline be to make this meaningful from the committee?
Um, well, presumably no, I shouldn't presume. Um, I don't know if the state board is providing testimony to the budget hearings, the education agency budget hearings. If they did, I would say we as a committee, if we agree, should say this is something we should put in that letter to request uh, funding for.
Jen, do you know?
As far as I'm aware, we're preparing for our own
Your
agency
own, okay,
hearings, so I don't know about the others. I don't
got it.
think there are
Probably
plans.
not, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so then for all intents and purposes, there would be not enough time for us to get into this budget cycle unless if we advocated individually. Is that what you're saying, Jen?
I
Okay,
think
so
so.
maybe it's and Rep Henderson, I'm uh I say this because I know you would do it well. Uh, would you be willing to do a note to everybody on the board and say this is what you're doing and ask if they would do it too? Because
Oh, sure.
ultimately that's what it is, right? It's just individual advocacy then, because the timing is tight. That's what you're saying, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe just put a draft of what you would write in it so we could reference it. Um, okay. So then our for the next meeting, the homework is mostly on you, Rep Henderson and Chen, um, to help us look into some of these and follow up on some of these things. But I would love, Jen, also for the next meeting, if you could pull up our original kind of plan and see how far off track we are now to get to where we wanted to go. And if folks would be open to a in-between meeting to catch up, because I would love to have a very specific ask that we're really pushing for with a clear, actionable ask by the end of this year.
I share that
Okay,
hope, and I'm willing to do a in-between meeting if we need to.
great. Okay, thank you. And good luck with your prep for the next meeting, Jen. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.